Our story begins with a young man named Kiku who was just walking in the forest. Only a few hours ago, he was living an ordinary life in Japan, but now he finds himself in a completely different world surrounded by magical monsters. On top of all that, he possesses enough magical skills to use against these monsters and take them down. After storing the monsters' bodies in his inventory, he begins to explain how he ended up in this world. He suddenly found himself transported from one place to a completely different one, and standing before him was a man who apologized to him, but Kiku couldn't understand why. He had no idea why this man was apologizing and began asking about his identity and the nature of the place they were in. The man introduced himself as Bezel and explained that he was one of the rulers of this realm. The place they were in was separate from the world Kiku had come from. Kiku thought it was all a joke and that they were in some kind of video game, but Bezel told him that wasn't the case at all. They were indeed in a real world. Kiku was surprised at how Bezel could read his thoughts, and Bezel explained that he had a mind-reading ability. However, he promised not to use it on Kiku again. They sat together and Bezel began to explain everything. Unfortunately, Bezel had used too much power and accidentally killed Kiku. But in return, he decided to transfer him to another world. The body Kiku now possessed was special because Bezel had granted him basic knowledge about this world and also gave him a variety of skills in this body. When Kiku opened his status window, he found out that he was now at level 3 and 20 years old. As he walked through the forest, he sensed danger, and when he looked toward the children, he was shocked to see that they were injured and battered. When he approached them to ask if there was someone important in the forest like their parents, no one responded. He thought, "What should I do now? I can't just leave them in a place like this." Sensing that they were hungry, he decided to open his inventory and take out some fruits for them. The two children were cautious, but when Kiku took a bite of one of the fruits in front of them, they began to eat as well. It became clear that they were very hungry. He noticed that their clothes were completely torn, so he decided to give them new ones. He spoke to them and told them that he planned to have an adventure in the forest and then head to the city. He asked if they wanted to join him, but when he asked for their names and ages, no one responded, so he decided to use his appraisal ability to learn their identities. He discovered that they were 5 years old and at level 12, but they didn't have any names. Kiku then decided to name the boy Ailen and the girl Elena. As they continued walking through the forest, they suddenly stopped and ran. When Kiku looked in the direction they were running, he saw a group of wild boars. He thought he might be able to defeat them from this distance, but to his surprise, the two children were able to take down the boars on their own. He was amazed that they could defeat the monsters by themselves. He spoke with them and learned that they had the ability to sense the presence of monsters. He asked them to inform him if they sensed any more monsters in the future, and they agreed. They continued on their way, and after a while the children tugged at his clothes and let him know that there was a monster nearby. He followed them, and they led him to a giant bear. Kiku watched as they took down the bear and returned to him. As they continued their journey, they defeated any monsters that appeared from the left or right until the sun began to set. Kiku asked them to gather some branches, and he started a fire. The two children were amazed by the fire, and then they began to eat. Seeing them happy made Kiku very pleased. That night, he set up a barrier to protect them so they could sleep peacefully. The next day, they continued their journey until they reached the city. When they arrived at the gate, the guards stopped them. When they found out that they had come from the forest, the guards were astonished because that forest was extremely dangerous. Only adventurers of the highest rank were allowed to enter it. Naturally, they became suspicious of Kiku since he came from there and had two children with him. So he changed his story and told them that he had come from the countryside to gather some herbs from the city. He explained that they only approached the edge of the forest and didn't venture deep into it. As for the two children, they were strong enough to defend themselves. When the guards asked him if he had found the herbs he needed, he said that he was lucky and managed to find them near the forest. The guard then asked him to show his identification to allow them to enter the city, but Kiku was embarrassed because he didn't have any form of identification. Then Kane starts talking to the guard and says, "I'm from a remote area and we don't have the things you're talking about there." The guard, noticing that Kane still didn't have an identity card, insisted, "Since you don't have an identity card, you must undergo a test." The guard then took them to the crystals and said, "We need to measure your magical power and check if you've committed any crimes before." When Kane touched the crystal, he learned that this magical orb could detect any crimes he had committed in the past using his magic. Kane thought to himself, Since I'm still new to this world and these are just children, there shouldn't be any crimes on record. When the guard saw the test results, he confirmed that they had not committed any crimes before and decided to issue them temporary identity cards. He then told them, if you're planning to stay in the city, it's best to visit the guild to get your own identity cards. Kane took the children into the city, noticing that they were very scared of the people. After a while, they continued their journey until they reached a church on top of a hill. Kane then used his magical powers to communicate with Basil, the guardian of the place. He started a conversation saying, "Hey master, how's everything going? What's the situation with you?" Basil responded, "I see you found these two children in the forest and couldn't leave them there, so you decided to bring them to the city. However, I understand you can't take care of them, so you're planning to leave them at the orphanage." Basil sighed and said, "Wait, master, bless you. I was certain you were behind this tempting mess." Kane replied, "Look, master, I can't tell you everything, but what I can say is that these kids aren't ordinary. They possess immense power, and it wasn't right for you to leave them in the forest." Understanding the situation, Kane said, "In any case, I wasn't planning to leave them at the orphanage." After that, he left the church with the two children and headed towards a hotel to spend the night. The children were so excited when they saw the bed that they started jumping on it, feeling overjoyed, until they fell asleep without realizing it. The next morning, Kane woke up, greeted them, and was surprised to find that the two children had started talking. Overjoyed by this, he decided to take them to the Adventurers Guild. When they arrived at the guild, they were greeted by the receptionist, Lona. Kane began talking to her and explained that he wanted to register himself and the two children with the Adventurers Guild, since there wasn't a specific age requirement for joining. Lona confirmed, "You're right. You can indeed register them with the guild. But don't you think they're too young for this kind of work?" Kane reassured her, saying, "I'll take good care of them." Lona then gave him a form to fill out to join the guild. After completing the registration, Lona called Kane over and handed him the membership cards, explaining that these cards also serve as personal identification. When Kane received his card, he realized that his rank had increased from level 3 to level 1. Lona then continued explaining the rules and guidelines he needed to follow to become a successful adventurer. She informed him that there were many ranks within the Adventurers Guild, starting from rank F and going up to rank S, which was the highest. However, there was also an exceptional rank SS, but no one had reached it yet. She also explained that adventurers often formed groups based on the average level of their members. As for the process of accepting missions from the guild, you need to take a task from the board, inform the guild about it, and after receiving approval, you're allowed to proceed with the mission. Furthermore, any items you collect during the mission can be brought back to the guild for evaluation and sale. After finishing the explanation, Kane informed her that he wanted to form a group within the guild. Lona responded, "That's great. All you need to do now is give me the name of your group." Kane thought for a moment, then, looking at the children, decided to name the group the White Wings. The children were thrilled with the name, and the receptionist accepted it. She then asked him if he wanted to take on the group's first mission. Kane agreed, and they headed to the board to choose a task. Most of the available missions involved gathering herbs and monster resources. There were also different missions like hunting monsters and protecting roads. For their first mission, the group decided to choose a simple task of gathering medicinal herbs. When Kane informed Lona that they would be gathering herbs, she explained that if they collected 10 herbs, it would count as a mission. She also informed him that he had 3 days to complete the task. After receiving approval, they went to the forest and started walking around. Soon, they encountered a slime, and the children immediately started playing with it. Kane then realized that the forest they were in was safe, with most of the monsters being either rank E or D, meaning they were very weak. Kane searched among the herbs and managed to find one of the required herbs. He called the children over to show them the type of herb they needed to gather and asked them to help collect more. The children quickly set off and each returned with one herb. Kane was surprised and pleased with them. They continued gathering herbs until they had collected a large amount. When they returned to the guild, Lona was surprised at the quantity they had managed to collect, especially since they had done it all in just half a day. After completing the mission and receiving their reward, a man started yelling at the children, questioning what they were doing there. Kane confronted him, saying, "These children are with me. Do you have a problem with that?" The man, clearly annoyed by the presence of children in such a place, responded, "Yes, I do. This is no place for kids." Cain muttered to himself, "Is it just my luck that there are jerks like this in every world?" Cain ignored the man, who became so enraged that he grabbed Cain by the neck. The children, seeing this, immediately launched an attack on the man. Just before they could seriously injure him, Cain stopped them and then spoke with Lona, asking if the children would be punished. Lona reassured him, no, since he was the one who attacked first, this counts as self-defense. A little later, a knight entered the guild, and then Cain sees him and recognizes that this is the same knight who he met at the city gate. Wona approaches Cain and tells him that he needs to take the children and leave. He looks at them, shocked because the two children are awake and crying. As he tries to calm them down, he realizes that they are crying because he had shouted at them earlier. He manages to soothe them. The knight then starts talking to Cain, asking him what exactly happened. Cain explains that there was an adventurer named Dominic who tried to pick a fight with them. As they get to know each other, Cain learns that the knight's name is Lewin, and he is the deputy commander of the city's guards. Lewin asks if the children were crying because they were scared, but Cain explains that they were just afraid he would leave them. Lewin asks him if he really intended to leave them behind, but Cain reassures him that he would never do such a thing. Cain then reveals that he has grown attached to the children due to the circumstances in which they met. Lewin realizes that the children are not Cain's biological children and asks about the details of how they met. Cain explains that he found the children in a forest called Gaia. Upon hearing this, Lewin becomes very concerned, as Gaia is known as the most dangerous forest in the kingdom. Lewin then wonders if the children were lost or if they were abandoned in the forest. He asks if there are any reports of carriages being attacked in Gaia. Wona mentions that there was a gang of slave traders who passed through Gaia on their way to the city but were attacked. Lewin then asks if it's okay for him to take the children with him on his adventures. Cain, seeing that the children are very attached to Lewin, says that he has decided to appoint Lewin as the guardian of the children. Wona then interjects, saying that since Cain was in Gaia, he should hand over the resources he collected there. Cain admits that he didn't gather much, just a few red wolves which he stored in his warehouse. The guard advises him to keep those resources because Wona is very fond of collecting them. Wona buys the resources from Cain and gives him some money. She then starts talking to Lewin, saying that she assumes he came to the guild to speak with the leader. Lewin confirms that he is here to discuss a mission. Cain, not understanding what Lewin is referring to, listens as Lewin explains that from time to time they go to Gaia to kill the monsters there to prevent them from multiplying and attacking the city. The knight informs Cain that since Gaia is so dangerous, he can only take a small group with him, and the current group isn't enough. That's why he decided to bring Cain along. Cain, surprised, insists that he can't join them because he's only of the F rank. The knight reassures him, saying that Cain was able to go to Gaia alone and even managed to defeat the red wolves there. The knight realizes that Cain is a very capable adventurer despite his modesty. Later, Cain goes to speak with the guild leader, explaining that he has come to recruit some adventurers for a mission. This time, however, Cain wants to make a personal request to a specific adventurer named Cain. The guild leader is surprised, as this is the first time he's heard of that name. Lewin explains that Cain recently arrived in the city and just joined the guild today. As Cain interacts with the guild, we see that he's beginning to enjoy life in the city. The two children initially didn't like the city because of the many people, but they gradually get used to it. At the end of the day, while they are having dinner, we learn that this world has 3 types of bread. However, Cain misses the types of bread from his previous world, like cakes and filled pastries. The next day, Cain decides to visit a bakery and begins talking to the baker, explaining that he wants to fill the bread with different ingredients. The baker, not understanding him at first, listens as Cain explains how these kinds of pastries are made. When the baker sees the result, he's very impressed and spends the whole night making these sweets, pancakes, and the new bread. After they finish making these sweets and pancakes, they try them and find them delicious. The baker is so pleased with the results that he asks Cain if they can sell these products in the shop and share the profits. Cain refuses, saying that he doesn't need any of the profits as these ideas aren't originally his, they're from his previous world. The next day, Cain heads to the guild, and then he learns from Luna that he has been promoted to the next rank. Notice that the two children start getting used to the city atmosphere and actually begin to adapt. After that, We see her asking him if he is interested in the labyrinths or not, and he understands exactly what she means, because he knows that in this world there are 108 labyrinths, and he has enough knowledge about them since he got it from Bessel. She starts explaining to him that most adventurers love going to the labyrinths because the strong monsters don't come near the city. She also tells him that there is a nearby labyrinth to the city, consisting of 15 underground floors. Kane here begins talking to the children and asks them if they want to go there, and they are indeed excited and eager to go. She is surprised and says to him, "You want to go now? By the way, it's difficult because to get there you have to walk half a day to reach it." Kane reassures them that they can reach it quickly and that they will only explore the first or second floor. After some time, we see that Kane and the two children have indeed reached the labyrinth. Although he had agreed with Luna to explore only the first and second floors, he also descends to the third floor. Whenever they reach a crossroads, the two children can determine the correct path, and indeed they start moving through the third floor. When Kane opens his skill window to read a little about the labyrinth they are in, he finds out that it's the labyrinth of Earth, where most of the monsters that appear are Earth creatures. As they are walking, suddenly a mole pops out of the ground in front of them. Kane tells them that this is very weak and that they can easily defeat it. But before he can finish his sentence, the two kids have already wiped it out and defeated it. They are surprised as the mole suddenly begins to disintegrate. Kane starts explaining to them that the monsters defeated in this labyrinth often drop rare items that can be useful. They look at the item the mole dropped and find that it is a single hair. Despite this, they continue advancing deeper and deeper into the labyrinth. Eventually, Kane stops them and says it's enough exploring for today. He then pulls out a magical device that allows them to cook fresh and tasty food. You could say it's like a portable stove. Anyway, we see them enjoying the rest of their day with the food and being very happy. Afterward, Kane sets up a barrier around them and they decide to sleep. The next day, they continue their adventures and they can defeat every monster they encounter easily. They spend more than one day in the labyrinth until they reach the 10th floor, where Kane can locate a secret door. When they open it, they are surprised to find a treasure chest inside. They know that it could either contain very valuable items or something dangerous, so Kane uses his skills to check if it's a trap or not. After using them, he confirms that it is safe and they open the chest. They are surprised to find 2 potions inside. One that, if consumed, increases your stamina, and the other is a mana potion that boosts your magical power. Kane knows that these potions are of low rank, meaning they aren't very valuable. Suddenly, the two kids are surprised by a monster appearing behind them, so they both attack it together and manage to defeat it. Then Kane approaches them and thanks them for saving him. As they are standing, the two kids point out a creature coming towards them. Kane uses his appraisal skill and realizes that it's a poisonous snake, so he steps back because it has venom in its fangs. He then tells himself that this is the right time to test his throwing skill, and he manages to hit it. Then he uses his wind skill and successfully defeats it. Afterward, we see some bees approaching them. Here, we see the kids excited to fight the bees. After Kane makes sure the bees aren't poisonous, he allows them to start killing them. Indeed, the kids start attacking the bees, but Kane can calm them down. They take a deep breath and start using their throwing skill as well, but it's clear that they are quite skilled. As Kane watches, he feels that the kids are enjoying their time, almost as if they are playing a game of tag. He focuses on sorting out the loot they have gathered. After some time, we see that the kids have adapted to the bees' movements and have managed to defeat them one by one. When the kids approach him, they hand him small bottles, and when he looks at them, he realizes that they contain honey. Kane knows that this honey is a valuable item and can be sold for a high price in the city. That's why, my friend, they decide to move on and clear out all the bees in the 10th floor. After successfully capturing some bees, Kane decides to reward them with a very delicious meal, which consists of waffles drenched in honey. While they are eating, we see a group of bees approaching them. Kane decides to take care of the bees this time and let the kids enjoy their meal. However, every time he finishes off a group of bees, another group appears. That's when he realizes that the honey is attracting the bees towards them. The kids are unfazed, my friend, and they keep moving on, collecting more honey. As time passes, we see that they have gathered a massive amount of honey, up to a ton. Eventually, they reach the lowest point in this labyrinth, the 15th floor. They are surprised to find a giant door in front of them, and Kane is sure that the boss is behind that door. Suddenly, they are surprised when the door opens in front of them on its own, revealing a massive room behind it. We see that the gate closes immediately behind them as if they are being trapped. They are surprised to find a massive earthworm, which turns out to be the final boss of this labyrinth. Cain realizes they have to defeat it. Feeling the danger, he asks the children to stay by his side while he handles the monster. He uses his wind magic, but the worm is very agile and can dodge the attacks despite its enormous size. It is also capable of gathering objects around it using its magic. The worm begins to attack Cain by launching large sandballs at him. Cain decides to use these sandballs against the worm. He bursts the sandballs, which gives him the space to use his wind magic effectively. Indeed, he manages to hit the worm directly, defeating the boss of the 15th floor. He is surprised by his own success and wonders if it was too easy, questioning whether the boss was weak or if he had become stronger. He examines the items dropped by the worm, including some meat, which disgusts him. He is certain that it will sell for a high price. The children approach him and ask for a hug, which makes him very happy. Afterward, they find a secret passage that leads them to another room. Cain realizes that the device inside is a teleportation device that can take them directly to the first floor. However, the children catch his attention because there is a treasure chest next to the device. When they open it, they find hand grenades inside. Cain is alarmed as the children are playing with the grenades like toys. He quickly decides to put them in his storage to prevent any accidents. They use the teleportation device and successfully leave the labyrinth. As they are about to leave, the children spot a dog standing at a distance. Upon closer inspection, Cain realizes it is actually a wolf. He starts to question whether it is a normal animal or a monster. Upon closer examination, he sees that it is a tamed animal. The wolf, named Ailun, is not aggressive and has a level of 25 with a variety of magical skills. Cain suspects that Bessel might be behind the situation and decides to test the wolf. After confirming it is a tamed monster, Cain decides to make a contract with the wolf to become his companion. The children suggest naming the wolf and Cain decides to name it Jewel. As they approach the city gate, Cain explains to the children that if people saw Jewel walking with them in the city, they would be frightened. Therefore, Jewel will use his shadow skill to hide. This skill is similar to instant teleportation, allowing Cain to summon him whenever needed. Cain returns to the city and meets with Bessel, explaining that he is not here to chat but to ask about the monster he found in the forest. Bessel reveals that someone had previously sent the monster to Cain, which makes Bessel upset. He explains that the monster's origin is related to a big boss known for using water magic, referred to as the Water Ruler. Cain and the children return to the hotel and rest after spending several days in the labyrinth. The next day, Cain heads to the place Bessel specified to meet a particular person. He is surprised to find a gift meant for his adventures, which has powerful offensive properties and is classified as an S-rank item. In addition, the wolf and a tiger-like creature are fitted with accessories that allow them to transform into small, cute creatures. This way, people in the city will see them as a normal dog and cat. The children are thrilled with these accessories and express their desire to own them. Cain explains that these accessories are for animals only and not for humans, but seeing their disappointed faces, he decides to make an exception. He gives each child a collar, which is also magical and has defensive skills, and can track their location on the map. While walking through the city, one of the children spots a store they are interested in. Cain decides to buy everything they want. The child picks out a hair ribbon, but Cain is puzzled by its color. She explains that the black ribbon is for him, which surprisingly matches his hair color. Before they leave, the store owner asks Cain to have the children try on some clothes she makes. They look great in the clothes and Cain buys them. Time passes and it becomes time for Cain to embark on the mission in the forest. He meets the leader of the expedition, Isaac, and the team. Isaac introduces the team members: Rudolph, who is a top ranker, Ars, who specializes in attack magic, Gylem, who is skilled in stealth, and Zack, who behaves like Michael Jackson. As they delve deeper into the forest, Cain and the team encounter a group of goblins. Cain offers to join the fight, but they warn him that his rank is too low. However, Cain reassures them that he is capable and manages to defeat a goblin with a single strike. Isaac is impressed and questions Cain's rank. Cain explains that he has been promoted to rank B, which surprises Isaac. Isaac instructs the team to recommend Cain to the guild leader for a rank promotion. As they continue deeper into the forest, they notice a red flare in the sky signaling an emergency. Isaac explains that it is a distress signal and that a team is under attack by a large number of monsters. They need to reach them quickly to help. Cain uses his wind magic to move at incredible speed and arrives at the scene of the distress signal. They find a group of adventurers surrounded by wolves, some of whom are injured. Kane and the children assist in fighting off the wolves. When the rescue team arrives, they are amazed by Kane's abilities. Kane feels a sense of being watched, similar to the feeling he had when he first left the city. It turns out that someone is hiding and observing them from afar. So, dear friend, these are the highlights of the first 3 episodes of this fantastic anime. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I have many more seasonal anime to share, so I hope to see your support to keep me motivated.